Night City does not create heroes. It creates survivors, criminals, corporate weapons, and legends who rarely live long enough to enjoy their reputation. In this city, almost every part of the human body can be replaced. Strength can be purchased, speed can be installed, and memories can be recorded, edited, and sold. A person can become faster than a bullet, stronger than a machine, or almost entirely artificial. However, no amount of technology can remove the rule that defines Night City. Everything has a price. Cyberpunk Edgerunners tells the story of David Martinez, a teenager who believes he is different from everyone who came before him. After losing his home, his mother, and any chance of living an ordinary life, David enters the criminal underworld and becomes an edgerunner. During his journey, he discovers friendship, love, power, and a sense of belonging. He also inherits the dreams and burdens of almost everyone he loses. His story takes place in the year 2076, shortly before the events of Cyberpunk 2077. It unfolds across the same streets, buildings, corporations, and violent systems that V later encounters. Although David never meets V, his story becomes part of Night City history, and his legacy can still be discovered inside the game. To understand David's rise and fall, we must first understand the world that created him. Night City is an independent metropolis located on the coast of California. It was originally envisioned as a place where corporations, technology, and personal ambition could grow without the restrictions of traditional governments. Instead, it became one of the most dangerous cities in the world. Its towers display unimaginable wealth, while entire communities survive beneath them in poverty. Corporations maintain private armies, conduct illegal experiments, manipulate political systems, and treat ordinary people as replaceable assets. The most powerful of these corporations is Arasaka. Arasaka began in Japan and eventually developed into a global empire that specialized in banking, manufacturing, corporate security, and advanced technology. By the 21st century, it had become powerful enough to compete directly with national governments. Its greatest rival is Militech, an American corporation focused on weapons and military technology. The conflict between Arasaka and Militech has shaped decades of history, including the devastating Fourth Corporate War. Even when the two corporations are not officially at war, they continue to compete through espionage, sabotage, mercenary operations, and secret research projects. Ordinary citizens are forced to live beneath this conflict. Their schools, homes, medical care, entertainment, and even personal identities are influenced or controlled by corporations. Wealth determines whether someone receives protection, while poverty can turn a minor accident into a death sentence. Cybernetic augmentation is also present throughout everyday life. Basic cyberware can replace damaged organs, improve eyesight, strengthen limbs, or allow a person to connect directly with machines. More advanced implants can transform an ordinary human into a weapon. The human nervous system still has limits. Installing too much cyberware can damage a person both physically and psychologically. As someone becomes increasingly disconnected from their natural body, they may begin to lose empathy, emotional stability, and their connection to reality. This condition is commonly known as cyberpsychosis. A person suffering from severe cyberpsychosis may become paranoid, violent, and unable to distinguish enemies from innocent civilians. When a cyberpsycho becomes too dangerous for ordinary police officers, Night City deploys MaxTac. This elite tactical division is specifically trained to eliminate or capture heavily augmented threats. This is the city in which David Martinez grows up. David lives with his mother, Gloria, in a small apartment in Santo Domingo. The district is filled with industrial facilities, aging infrastructure, crowded neighborhoods, gangs, and workers who keep Night City functioning without ever sharing in its wealth. Gloria works as an emergency medical technician. She spends long hours responding to the violence that consumes the city. She sees the bodies left behind by gang wars, corporate operations, traffic accidents, and cyberpsychotic attacks. Despite their poverty, Gloria refuses to accept that David must remain trapped in the same social class. She works constantly to keep him enrolled at Arasaka Academy, an elite educational institution designed primarily for the children of wealthy corporate families. Gloria believes David is intelligent enough to earn a position inside Arasaka and escape the life she has been forced to endure. David does not share her confidence. At the academy, he is surrounded by students with better equipment, stronger connections, and wealthy families. Their cyberware is updated legally and professionally, while David must rely on illegal software because Gloria cannot afford the official upgrades required by the school. David constantly feels like an outsider. He attends classes through a virtual learning system, but the incompatible software installed on his equipment causes the academy network to malfunction. The incident humiliates him and leaves Gloria responsible for expenses they cannot afford. One of David's classmates, Katsuo Tanaka, regularly mocks him because of his poverty. Katsuo is the son of James Tanaka, a high-ranking Arasaka executive. He represents everything David lacks, including money, status, corporate protection, and access to expensive technology. Although David is intelligent, intelligence alone has little value inside a system built to protect people like Katsuo. Gloria still believes her son can succeed. She tells David that she wants to see him reach the top of Arasaka Tower. To her, the tower represents security, success, and a life beyond poverty. David sees it differently. To him, Arasaka Tower represents a world that will never truly accept them. Their argument is interrupted when they become trapped in the middle of a violent confrontation between gang members. Gunfire tears through the road and their vehicle crashes. Gloria is critically injured. A trauma team unit arrives at the scene. Trauma team operates as a heavily armed private medical service capable of entering combat zones and extracting clients under military protection. Gloria and David are not clients because they do not possess the correct insurance package. Trauma team ignores them and rescues someone else. This moment reveals the central cruelty of Night City. Medical technology has become extraordinarily advanced, but access to that technology is determined by money. Gloria is eventually taken to a public hospital. David believes that she will recover, but he later receives a brief message informing him that she has died. There is no meaningful explanation and no personal conversation. His mother's life is reduced to another transaction inside an overwhelmed system. David cannot even afford a proper funeral. Gloria's remains are cremated, and her ashes are placed inside a small container that David carries with him. With his mother gone, David loses the person who gave his life direction. He also inherits her unpaid bills and discovers that he may soon lose their apartment. He then finds the military-grade Sandevistan that Gloria had been hiding. A Sandevistan is a combat implant connected directly to the user's nervous system. When activated, it dramatically accelerates the user's perception and physical reactions. To everyone else, a skilled Sandevistan user appears to move at impossible speed. The implant David discovers is not ordinary commercial cyberware. It was recovered from the body of James Norris, a heavily augmented soldier who became cyberpsychotic. Norris attacked civilians and fought MaxTac before he was killed. Gloria secretly recovered his Sandevistan and apparently intended to sell it to Maine, an experienced mercenary. Instead of selling the implant, David decides to install it in his own body. His local Ripperdoc warns him that the technology is dangerous. Even trained soldiers may only be able to activate an implant of this quality a limited number of times each day. David refuses to reconsider. The Ripperdoc installs the Sandevistan without fully expecting David to survive its effects. David does more than survive. His body adapts to it. He returns to Arasaka Academy and confronts Katsuo. Katsuo activates his own combat enhancement because he is confident that David cannot fight back. David activates the Sandevistan, Before Katsuo can react, David strikes him repeatedly and defeats him in front of the other students. For the first time, David possesses something that the wealthy cannot immediately take from him. However, the victory destroys his remaining connection to the academy. David is expelled, leaving him without a home, an education, or a stable future. Arasaka becomes interested in him. The corporation examines footage of the fight and recognizes that David has demonstrated an unusual tolerance for military-grade cyberware. To Arasaka, David is not a remarkable young man. He is a potentially valuable test subject. David does not yet understand that his supposed immunity has attracted the attention of one of the most powerful corporations in the world. While riding the city's public transportation system, David notices a young woman stealing data shards from corporate employees. Her name is Lucina Kushinada. Although almost everyone calls her Lucy, Lucy is a netrunner. Netrunners access computer systems through neural interfaces. They can infiltrate networks, steal information, disable technology, or attack another person's cyberware. The most skilled netrunners can enter virtual environments where digital security systems become almost physical threats. David catches Lucy stealing from him. But instead of reporting her, he reveals his Sandevistan. Lucy immediately recognizes its value. She proposes that they work together and use David's speed to steal more data shards before their targets can react. For David, the job feels exciting. He is no longer the powerless student who could only watch as Night City destroyed his life. His body eventually begins to fail. David activates the Sandevistan too many times in a short period. He collapses and is taken to a hospital, where Lucy remains with him until he recovers. Afterward, she brings David to her apartment and shows him a brain dance recording of the moon. Brain dance technology allows someone to experience recorded sensations, including sight, sound, movement, emotion, and physical feeling. The user does not simply watch another person's experience. For a brief period, they feel as though they are living it themselves. Inside Lucy's recording, David experiences the surface of the moon. Lucy explains that traveling to the moon is her dream. At first, the moment appears intimate. David believes he has found someone who understands his desire to escape Night City. Lucy has been hiding something. Maine enters the apartment with his crew and confronts David. The Sandevistan belonged to him. Gloria had been planning to sell it before her death, and Maine now wants the implant returned. Removing it could kill David. Instead, David asks to join Maine's crew and promises to repay the implant's value by working for him. Maine is skeptical, but David demonstrates his ability to activate the Sandevistan repeatedly. Maine sees both potential and recklessness in him. David is allowed to participate in a mission. Maine's crew includes several highly specialized members. Dorio is Maine's partner and second in command. She is disciplined, physically powerful, and fiercely loyal to him. Kiwi is an experienced netrunner and one of Lucy's mentors. She is calm, cautious, and deeply suspicious of trust. Pilar is a loud and unpredictable technical specialist. Rebecca is Pilar's younger sister. She is small, aggressive, heavily armed, and completely comfortable with violence. Falco is an experienced driver. Lucy handles net-running assignments alongside Kiwi. The crew also works for Faraday, a fixer who arranges contracts between clients and mercenaries. Fixers are essential to Night City's criminal economy. They locate jobs, gather information, negotiate payments, and assemble teams with the correct skills. Faraday is ambitious and manipulative. Although he presents himself as a professional intermediary, he is constantly searching for opportunities to increase his influence and status. David's first major operation involves stealing navigation data from an Arasaka employee named Maxim Kuznetsov. The mission requires David to recover a vehicle while its owner is distracted. The plan becomes more complicated when Katsuo appears. The vehicle belongs to his family, which connects David's new criminal life to the corporate world he attempted to escape. A group of Tiger Claws also interferes. The Tiger Claws are one of Night City's most prominent gangs. They are strongly associated with Japanese cultural influence, nightlife, gambling, human trafficking, and advanced cyberware. David is forced to activate the Sandevistan repeatedly during the escape. Although the job becomes chaotic, he helps the crew survive, and Maine begins to accept him. David is not simply allowed to work with the group. For the first time since Gloria's death, he gains something resembling a family. Maine becomes a mentor and father figure. Dorio provides stability, while Pilar and Rebecca treat him like part of the group. His connection with Lucy becomes more complicated. David confronts her about deceiving him when they first met. Lucy admits that she helped bring him to Maine, but she insists that the experience they shared on the moon was real. She was dishonest about her intentions, but not about her dream. David chooses to trust her. Their relationship develops while David becomes increasingly involved in the crew's operations. He trains, gains experience, and begins installing additional cyberware. Every implant makes him more effective, but it also moves him closer to the same danger that destroyed James Norris. David believes his body is different. The Sandevistan did not kill him, and he can activate it more frequently than most people. This convinces him that ordinary limitations may not apply to him. Night City encourages this belief. Every successful mission rewards greater risk. Every enemy appears to possess stronger weapons or more advanced implants. Remaining competitive means replacing more of the body. One day, Pilar provokes a homeless man who appears confused and unstable. The man suddenly attacks because he is suffering from cyberpsychosis. Before the others can react, Pilar is killed. David attempts to fight the cyberpsycho, but even with the Sandevistan, he is nearly overwhelmed. Maine and the rest of the crew eventually help eliminate the attacker. Pilar's death teaches David an important lesson. Speed does not make him invincible, and cyberpsychosis can destroy anyone. Rebecca is devastated by the death of her brother, but Night City gives the crew little time to grieve. Jobs continue, enemies remain, and survival requires them to keep moving. The crew's next major assignment comes through Faraday. Their target is James Tanaka, Katsuo's father and a senior employee within Arasaka. Faraday wants information stored inside Tanaka's cyberware. Maine's team captures him and brings him to an abandoned location where Lucy and Kiwi can access his data. Tanaka recognizes David. He tells David that Arasaka Academy is willing to accept him again. The offer is not an act of forgiveness. Arasaka wants David inside an environment where the corporation can study him. Tanaka explains that David possesses a rare tolerance for cyberware. Arasaka sees him as a possible candidate for experimental technology. David rejects the offer. He has already found a place among Maine's crew, and he refuses to return to the institution that treated him as inferior. While Lucy explores Tanaka's data, she discovers something dangerous. Arasaka has identified David as a potential test subject for a prototype cyberskeleton. The cyberskeleton is an experimental combat frame designed to transform its user into an overwhelmingly powerful weapon. Its neurological demands would destroy most people, but David's resistance to cyberware makes him valuable. Lucy secretly removes the information that connects David to the project. She does not tell the others what she has found. Her decision is motivated by fear. Lucy was raised by Arasaka. As a child, she was selected for a corporate net running program. She and other children were trained to enter the old net. The dangerous digital space that existed before much of the internet was isolated behind the black wall. The old net contains rogue artificial intelligence, corrupted systems, abandoned military programs, and threats capable of destroying a netrunner's mind. Arasaka treated Lucy and the other children as expendable tools. Many of them died during dangerous operations. Lucy eventually escaped, but she never stopped fearing that Arasaka would find her again. Her dream of reaching the moon is not simply a desire for adventure. It represents the greatest possible distance from the corporation that controlled her childhood. After meeting David, her dream changes. Escaping Night City is no longer enough. She also wants David to survive. During the attempt to extract Tanaka's information, the operation collapses. Tanaka's systems interfere with the connection, and Maine begins to lose control. Maine has installed increasing amounts of cyberware over the years. His hands begin to shake, and he experiences hallucinations. These are signs of cyberpsychosis. Dorio urges him to reduce his implants, but Maine refuses. His cyberware represents his identity, strength, and position as the leader of the crew. Removing it would feel like surrendering everything he has built. Tanaka's trauma team signal is activated, and corporate forces begin closing in on the building. Maine's mental condition deteriorates rapidly. He becomes paranoid and violent. When Kiwi attempts to disconnect Tanaka safely, Maine attacks her. The situation becomes even worse when Tanaka dies, preventing a clean extraction of the information. Trauma team and police units surround the crew. Dorio tries to bring Maine back to reality, but she is shot during the confrontation. She dies while trying to protect him. The loss destroys what remains of Maine's stability. David finds him surrounded by explosives and the bodies of their enemies. He attempts to save his mentor because he refuses to accept that Maine is already lost. Maine tells David to keep running. He then dies in the explosion. David survives, but he carries Maine's final words with him. This moment becomes the turning point of his life. After some time has passed, David has completely transformed. He is older, physically larger, and far more heavily augmented. He has taken control of the surviving crew and replaced much of his natural body with military-grade cyberware. Maine's arms have effectively become part of his new identity. David has inherited Maine's position, reputation, and destructive habits. Rebecca and Falco remain with him. Kiwi eventually returns to work with the crew, but Lucy withdraws from regular missions. David has become a successful edgerunner. Fixers know his name. His team receives dangerous contracts, and he earns enough money to live in a large apartment with Lucy. He has achieved almost everything he once lacked. He now possesses money, physical power, status, and people who depend on him. He has also begun to repeat Maine's collapse. His hands shake. He experiences hallucinations, and his body requires immunosuppressants to continue functioning with so much cyberware. The Ripper Doc warns him that he is approaching his limit. David refuses to stop because he still believes that he is special. This idea has followed him since the beginning. Gloria believed he was special enough to reach the top of Arasaka Tower. Maine believed that he had unusual potential. Arasaka's research also confirms that his tolerance is exceptional. Exceptional does not mean limitless. David's greatest mistake is not simply installing cyberware. His greatest mistake is believing that being unusual makes him immune to consequences. Lucy sees what is happening. She asks him to reduce his implants, but David cannot imagine abandoning the strength that allows him to protect everyone around him. He is no longer living only for himself. David is trying to fulfill Gloria's dream by reaching the top. He is carrying Maine's legacy by leading the crew, and he wants to earn enough money to send Lucy to the moon. He has inherited everyone else's dreams without creating one of his own. While David continues working, Lucy secretly hunts Arasaka and Netrunners. After the death of Tanaka, Arasaka begins investigating the missing data connected to the cyberskeleton project. Lucy tracks and kills the agents who come close to discovering David. She is protecting him, but she refuses to explain what she is doing. This secrecy creates distance between them. David believes that Lucy no longer trusts him enough to return to the crew. Lucy believes that telling him the truth would expose him to even greater danger. Their relationship remains loving, but both of them become isolated by the burdens they refuse to share. Eventually, Lucy targets another Arasaka netrunner. The mission is a trap. Kiwi betrays Lucy and delivers her to Faraday. Kiwi has spent years teaching Lucy never to trust anyone in Night City. Her betrayal proves how deeply she believes that lesson. Faraday discovers the truth inside Lucy's memories. Arasaka wants David because of his compatibility with the cyberskeleton, while Lucy has been eliminating anyone who uncovers that information. Faraday sees an opportunity. Militech wants the experimental weapon. Arasaka wants its research protected, and it also wants David recovered as a test subject. Faraday intends to manipulate both corporations and use David as a demonstration of the cyberskeleton's power. He sends David's crew to intercept a convoy. David, Rebecca, Falco, and Kiwi attack the transport and discover that its cargo is the prototype cyberskeleton. Militech forces surround them. Kiwi escapes as part of Faraday's plan and leaves the others trapped. Faraday uses Lucy's image and voice to contact David. He convinces him that installing the cyberskeleton is the only way to save his crew. David accepts. The machine replaces much of his augmented body and connects directly to his nervous system. The cyberskeleton gives David control over extraordinary gravitational technology. He can crush vehicles, manipulate enormous forces, and destroy heavily armed soldiers. Combined with his Sandevistan, the machine turns him into one of the most dangerous people in Night City. Every use also pushes him closer to complete cyberpsychosis. David destroys the Militech forces. When he learns that Lucy has been captured, he decides to attack Arasaka Tower and rescue her. This decision brings his story back to Gloria's dream. She wanted to see him reach the top of the tower. David will reach it, but not as an Arasaka executive. He reaches it as a weapon, tearing through the corporation's security forces while his own mind collapses. The Ripper Doc provides David with powerful immunosuppressants, but the medication can only delay the inevitable. Rebecca and Falco remain beside him. They understand that David may not survive, but they refuse to abandon him. Kiwi begins to regret her betrayal. Faraday has no intention of keeping his promises to her, and he orders her death to remove a witness. After being shot, Kiwi contacts David's crew and reveals Faraday's location. She dies after finally trusting them with the information they need. David, Rebecca, and Falco race towards Arasaka Tower. The cyberskeleton attracts the attention of police forces, corporate troops, Militech, and MaxTech. David destroys almost everything sent against him, but his hallucinations become increasingly severe. He imagines himself as a child. He sees Gloria, he loses track of the present, and mentally returns to the moment that defined his life. Rebecca repeatedly forces him to concentrate. She stays beside him, even though she understands that he loves Lucy. Her loyalty is not based on the belief that David will choose her. Rebecca remains because he is her friend, her leader, and one of the last people she considers family. At Arasaka Tower, Faraday attempts to deliver Lucy and the cyberskeleton research to the corporation. David attacks the building and reaches Lucy. For a brief moment, her presence brings him back from cyberpsychosis. Their connection allows David to remember what he is fighting for. Arasaka possesses a weapon, even more dangerous than David. Adam's Smasher arrives. Smasher is one of the most infamous figures in the history of Night City. After most of his natural body was destroyed, he became almost completely cybernetic. Unlike David, Smasher does not struggle to preserve his humanity. He treats empathy as a weakness and violence as entertainment. For decades, he has worked as Arasaka's ultimate enforcer. He fought in corporate wars, survived the destruction of Arasaka Tower in the year 2023, and killed countless opponents. By the year 2076, his name has become part of Night City mythology. David is powerful, but he is also exhausted, inexperienced, mentally unstable, and dependent on a prototype that he has only just installed. Smasher immediately recognizes the cyberskeleton's technology. He is not impressed. The confrontation demonstrates the difference between raw power and mastery. David has spent his entire life believing that his compatibility with cyberware makes him unique. Adam's Smasher is the reality waiting at the end of that belief. Smasher also possesses a Sandevistan. David's greatest advantage, the speed that once made him feel untouchable, is no longer unique. The battle begins. Faraday attempts to escape, but Smasher has no reason to protect him. Faraday falls from Arasaka Tower, and is destroyed by the corporation he hoped to join. Rebecca prepares to attack Smasher. He descends directly onto her and kills her instantly. Her death is sudden because Night City does not reward loyalty, courage, or personal growth. Falco is injured, and the crew's remaining chance of escape begins to disappear. David uses the gravitational systems of the cyberskeleton to resist Smasher, but the machine is torn apart. Lucy refuses to leave him. David understands that he cannot defeat Smasher and cannot escape. He gives Falco his final instructions. Falco must take Lucy away and ensure that she survives. David stays behind. This is the first decision he makes after completely accepting his own limit. Throughout the story, David tries to carry everyone else's dreams. In his final moments, he stops trying to survive long enough to fulfill all of them. He chooses one objective. Lucy must live. Falco escapes with her. David faces Adam Smasher alone. Smasher admits that David could have been interesting as a construct, a digitally preserved consciousness similar to the personality engrams stored by Arasaka. David rejects the idea with he does not want to become another Arasaka product. Smasher kills him. David Martinez dies before the events of Cyberpunk 2077, but he dies after denying Arasaka ownership of what remains of him. Lucy eventually travels to the moon. She has achieved the dream she described when she first met David. The experience is empty without him. On the lunar surface, she remembers the brain dance they shared. She imagines David standing in the sunlight, young and unmodified, before cyberware and responsibility consumed him. David believed that Lucy's dream was the moon. By the end of the story, Lucy's real dream was simply to live with David. He gave her the destination, but he could not give her the future she wanted. The ending of Cyberpunk Edgerunners is tragic, but it is not disconnected from Cyberpunk 2077. The anime takes place during the year 2076, approximately 1 year before V's story. The same Night City continues after David's death. Its streets do not change. The corporations do not collapse. Arasaka remains powerful, and Adam Smasher continues working for the company. For Night City, the destruction of David's crew is another violent event that quickly becomes part of local legend. Players can visit many of the locations seen in the anime. David and Gloria's apartment building is located in Mega Building H4 in Arroyo. The building itself is inaccessible during the game because it has been placed under quarantine, but the surrounding area of Santo Domingo remains recognizable. The Academy, transit systems, highways, alleys, clubs, industrial areas, and other sections of the city used throughout the anime were based on locations from Cyberpunk 2077. This makes Edgerunners more than a story inspired by the game. It is a story constructed directly inside its world. One of the clearest connections can be found near David's former apartment. V can discover a brain dance connected to the cyber-psycho attack that opens the anime. The recording shows James Norris fighting Maxtac while using the same Sandevistan that eventually reached David. After viewing the recording, V can contact Muammar Reyes, a fixer also known as El Capitan. This begins a short series of messages connected to David Martinez. V eventually receives a response from Falco. Falco explains that David's crew is no longer active and suggests that V should not search for them. However, he acknowledges that V and David appear to share something in common. Both of them become unusually significant mercenaries in Night City. Falco sends V a package containing David's jacket. The yellow jacket originally belonged to Gloria. David continued wearing it after her death, transforming it into the most recognizable symbol of his identity. When V receives the jacket, David's personal history becomes physically connected to the player's journey. V is not simply hearing about a dead mercenary. V is carrying something inherited from Gloria and David. Rebecca also leaves a weapon behind. Her shotgun, Guts, can be found in Memorial Park near Arasaka Tower. It is an extremely powerful weapon with severe recoil, matching Rebecca's aggressive personality and preference for overwhelming firepower. The location is especially significant. Rebecca died during the assault on Arasaka Tower. Finding her weapon nearby turns the area into an unofficial memorial. The drink menu at the Afterlife provides another connection. The Afterlife is the most famous mercenary bar in Night City. It is located inside a former morgue and serves as a meeting place for fixers, solos, netrunners, and edgerunners. The bar names certain drinks after legendary mercenaries who died dramatically. David Martinez has a drink named after him. The existence of this drink confirms that his final mission made him a recognized Night City legend. This is the form of immortality that the city offers. A person dies, their story is simplified, and their name becomes something other mercenaries order before risking their own lives. David is not the only Edgerunners character connected to locations in the game. Memorials dedicated to members of the crew can be found inside the Columbarium. The Columbarium stores the remains and memorial inscriptions of Night City residents. The messages associated with David, Gloria, Maine, Dorio, Pilar, Rebecca, and Kiwi offer brief reflections on their relationships and deaths. Lucy is strongly implied to be the person responsible for several of these memorials. Their presence confirms that the crew's story remains part of the world after the anime ends. Atom Smasher provides the most important connection to the main story of Cyberpunk 2077. After killing David, Smasher continues serving Arasaka. During the game, he becomes one of V's most important enemies. He is also connected to Johnny Silverhand, whose digital consciousness is trapped inside V's mind. Johnny participated in the attack on Arasaka Tower during the year 2023. During the operation, Smasher defeated him, and Arasaka later created an engram of Johnny's personality. Decades later, they can confront Smasher during the final stages of the game. This confrontation gives the player an opportunity to defeat the same corporate weapon who destroyed David and Rebecca. The game does not frame the battle as direct revenge for Edgerunners because Cyberpunk 2077 was originally released before the anime. After watching David's story, however, the fight carries additional meaning. Smasher is no longer only Johnny Silverhand's enemy. He also represents the force that ended David's crew. The difference between David and V reveals another important truth about Night City. Both characters begin with limited power and become heavily augmented mercenaries. Both challenge Arasaka. Both are drawn towards legendary status. Both also face the possibility of losing their identities to technology. Their exact circumstances are different. David's body is destroyed by cyberware and cyberpsychosis. V's body is threatened by the Relic, a prototype biochip that contains Johnny Silverhand's engram and gradually rewrites V's neural structure. David loses control because he adds too much technology to his body. V loses control because another personality is replacing the mind already inside that body. Arasaka is connected to both situations. The corporation wanted to use David as a test subject for the cyberskeleton. It uses the Relic as part of a much larger effort to control consciousness, death, and digital immortality. David and V are therefore two different examples of the same corporate philosophy. Human beings are valuable only when their bodies and minds can be converted into technology. David's story also influenced the later gameplay systems of Cyberpunk 2077. Later versions of the game introduced a cyberware capacity system that limits how many implants V can install safely. The Edgerunner perk allows players to exceed the normal cyberware capacity at a cost, creating a style of gameplay inspired by characters who push beyond safe physical limits. The game also expanded effects connected to cyberpsychosis and added equipment associated with the anime. These additions strengthen the connection between David's experience and the choices made by the player. The story does not suggest that cyberware alone caused David's destruction. Cyberpsychosis is more complicated than a simple equipment limit. David experiences severe trauma. He loses Gloria, Pilar, Maine, and Dorio. He becomes responsible for an entire crew, while still extremely young. He participates in constant violence, sleeps poorly, uses powerful medication, and lives under continuous pressure. Cyberware intensifies his instability, but Night City creates the conditions surrounding it. This is why David's claim that he is special is partially true. He does possess exceptional tolerance. He survives implants that would destroy many other people. His tolerance only delays the consequences. It does not remove them. Atom Smasher appears immune because almost nothing recognizably human remains within him. David still loves, grieves, fears, and feels responsible for others. These emotions make David human. They also make him vulnerable in a world that rewards people like Smasher. Lucy understands this before David does. Her original dream is to escape Earth and reach the moon. After falling in love with David, survival alone is no longer enough. She does not want him to become a legend. She wants him to remain alive. David cannot understand this because he defines love through sacrifice. Gloria sacrifices herself to give him an education. Maine sacrifices himself after losing control. David learns that caring for someone means carrying their dream after they are gone. He never learns how to live beside another person without turning himself into a tool for their future. That is why his final sacrifice is both loving and tragic. David saves Lucy, but he also leaves her alone with the dream that he believed he was fulfilling. Maine's story mirrors David's journey. Maine begins as a respected leader with a powerful body and a loyal crew. He refuses to reduce his cyberware because he believes strength is necessary to protect the people around him. David watches Maine collapse. He then follows the same path. He takes Maine's position, adopts heavier implants, ignores the shaking in his hands, rejects the concern of others, and insists that he can continue. The physical transformation after the passage of time makes this connection clear. David does not merely replace Maine as the leader. He becomes a younger version of him. Rebecca sees the danger, but remains loyal. Kiwi expects betrayal and eventually creates the betrayal that she feared. Faraday believes corporations will reward his usefulness, only to discover that Arasaka views him as disposable. Gloria believes corporate success can save David, while Arasaka sees him only as research material. Almost every character misunderstands the system in a different way. Night City encourages people to believe that they can win if they become rich enough, powerful enough, fast enough, or useful enough. The system is not designed to be won. It is designed to consume people and replace them. This explains the importance of the name Edgerunners. An edgerunner lives at the edge of society, technology, legality, and survival. The closer someone moves towards that edge, the more famous and dangerous they become. Crossing the edge creates legends. It also kills them. David begins as someone with no control over his own life. The academy controls his education. Poverty controls his home. The healthcare system determines whether his mother receives treatment. Arasaka decides whether he is valuable. Installing the Sandevistan feels like an act of freedom. For the first time, David chooses what happens to his own body. Every later implant becomes another chain. His power attracts Arasaka. His reputation attracts dangerous jobs. His responsibilities prevent him from stopping, and his belief in being special prevents him from accepting help. David escapes one form of control and enters another. The moon represents the opposite of Night City. Night City is crowded, loud, violent, artificial, and controlled by corporations. The moon appears open, silent, bright, and distant. Even the moon has been commercialized. Lucy's journey is a tourist experience sold to people wealthy enough to leave Earth temporarily. There is no completely untouched place left in the world of cyberpunk. The moon still means something to Lucy because David believed in her dream. When she sees him in her memory, she remembers the version of David who had not yet been consumed by other people's expectations. That is his true legacy. His legacy is not the cyberskeleton, the Sandevistan, or the destruction at Arasaka Tower. His most meaningful achievement is giving Lucy a reason to imagine a life beyond fear. Inside Cyberpunk 2077, Night City remembers David as a legend. His jacket can be worn by another mercenary. His drink can be ordered at the Afterlife. His crew has memorials. Rebecca's weapon remains near the place where she died. Falco survives somewhere beyond the player's reach. Lucy's exact life after the moon remains uncertain, but her memories preserve the people that Arasaka attempted to erase. David never becomes a corporate executive. He never reaches the top in the way Gloria imagined. He still reaches Arasaka Tower. He enters the center of the corporation that controlled his education, targeted his body, traumatized Lucy, and represented everything his mother hoped would save him. David reaches the top on his own terms. Night City then does what it does to almost every person who challenges it. It turns him into a story. Cyberpunk Edgerunners is not only the story of a teenager destroyed by cyberware, it is the story of a society that converts human dreams into products. Gloria's dream becomes Arasaka's recruitment system. Lucy's dream becomes lunar tourism. Maine's strength becomes cyberpsychosis. David's desire to protect others becomes a reason to continue replacing his body. Faraday's ambition becomes an opportunity for Arasaka to use and eliminate him. Night City does not need to destroy dreams directly. It gives people the tools to destroy themselves while pursuing them. David Martinez believed that he was special. He was right. He survived more than most people could. He rose from an expelled student to one of Night City's most famous mercenaries. He challenged two of the world's largest corporations, used experimental technology, invaded Arasaka Tower, and stood against Atom Smasher. Being special was never enough. In Night City, legends are not the people who escape. They are the people whose deaths become too memorable to ignore. David's name survives. His jacket survives. His drink survives. His story survives. Somewhere above Earth, Lucy carries the memory of the boy who once promised to take her to the moon. Night City took almost everything from David Martinez. It could not completely erase him.